What is going on? We are here. What's up, Brandon? Figure
What's
we
up, man?
jump on here and have one of our chats with all the craziness going on with training camp. So why not do it with the people out there and really make this happen? So lots of craziness on the Bird app today, right?
Bro, Bird app was wild today. I mean, the Bird app's always wild. Let's just give it 100. The Bird app's always wild. It was just a little extra wild. And I think it's because football's starting, right? Like there's been a lot of speculation about what could be happening, who's going to take the lead, what rookies are going to shine, which guys aren't going to be good, which ones are going to be good. We're already seeing highlights left and right. I know you've been posting about CD, like feels like every 3 hours.
I think so. I feel like CD gives us a highlight every 3 hours, and if it's been 6 hours and you haven't seen the CD highlight, there's probably something going on, and we should be concerned. You know, that's what it's all about. It's instant reaction season. So I figured, why not jump on, hit you up? We have these conversations all day. It's me, you, Jay Rich, Ray, JB, everybody. We're just chatting it away and figuring out what the heck's going on, or laughing at a lot of these instant reactions. So hey, why don't we give out some crazy takes ourselves, right? So, man, just a ton of stuff going on. But you love to see it. It feels like we go through that dormant season where people are just pulling tweets out of there, you know what, and we just go from there. But it's kind of fun. We figure we do some extra stuff here with the Elite Seekers, powered by Destination Devi. So it's fun to jump on and do. This is my second live show now. I think I did something for the NFL draft, had some fun with that. But hey, man, you and me go back a little bit. We had NFT Block Gang as well. You're big into the crypto world, and we've definitely had some fun there. But today it is about training camp. So let's talk about some of these things, man. First up, obviously a big name off the board, and we're probably going to see this quite a bit because things are unfortunately ramping up a little bit. But Lamar Jackson was held out, is on the COVID list. Are you concerned? I mean, this is a year where, you know, Lamar's coming off of what we would call a down year, and what I would say the fantasy world would consider a down year. But are we concerned that, you know, he's not able to get out there? He's got some new receiving weapons, right? So there's going to be some issues as far as figuring that out, or are we not too concerned?
I'm not, honestly, right now, I'm not concerned about guys being on the COVID list. I'd be more concerned if it was middle August and we're talking about guys being 10 days off. I mean, the reality is at this point, veterans are already trying to find their way to get off, you know, the early grind of the training camp season. We know this to be kind of a fact with just, you know, guys taking maintenance days and whatnot. So I'm not that concerned. Maybe if you're a Bateman holder or a Tylan Wallace guy, you're a little bit nervy just because you got Trace McSorley and RG3 or, you know, throwing passes to them right now. So the timing is going to be a little different. But I'm not worried about Lamar. I'm not worried about Gus Edwards. I know some people are already kind of like on the worry train that this is going to send J.K. Dobbins to the moon. Newsflash, he was already going to go to the moon. Gus is going to be fine. He's still going to be a guy who sees 6 to 10 touches a week. I'm not really worried July 28th about guys who are on COVID. It's just not. I'm more concerned about other injuries than COVID.
Yeah, I think, again, this is just going to be a piece that we're going to have to deal with and navigate as the season goes on. So, you know, hopefully you're in leagues that are going to be flexible if we do start to see things ramp up at all. But hopefully we just, you know, get ahead of this thing, and it's few and far between, because we've already been through the craziness of 2020 and what that season looked like. There was a lot of moments where we weren't even sure there was going to be a rest of the season. So thankfully we made it through. But that is definitely something interested. You know, I'm not concerned at all when we're talking about early off-season, start of training camp. You know, you wish those guys the best and that, you know, things aren't too bad. But, yeah, definitely not worried as far as the football piece goes. Moving over to the Bills, this is a backfield I think everybody's been staying away from unless you are a Zach Moss truther. I have not met a Devin Singletary truther out there, but I'm sure they're somewhere because – everybody is a truther of somebody at some point. Absolutely. But Sean McDermott today said he's been really intentional on working on his weaknesses this offseason, and says he's really anxious to see him in the practices. So for me, this just sounds like coach speak. It doesn't sound like anything groundbreaking. Yes, did it get tweeted out there and talked about? Sure. But to me, it just muddies that a little bit. If you were someone that was like, I'm all in on Zach Moss this year, which I'm worried about. I mean, their top running back is still Josh Allen. Like, let's be real. And Devin Singletary is not somebody I am looking to have on my rosters. And out of 25 some leagues, I have him on 0 at this point. What about you, though?
I mean, the Bills' backfield is not something. I mean, it's not a backfield that I want to go into with Devin Singletary or Zach Moss being my RB1. Let's just call it that. If they're my RB2 or they're my flex play, I'm okay with that because there is some value. Like, all running backs are going to have value. And I think if we've learned anything from the last few years, it's that every backfield has value. It's just what is the value that you're comfortable with in relative terms to your fantasy team, right? So when we're looking at fantasy value, what is Devin Singletary and Zach Moss? Realistically, they're probably like RB2 to your flex. So if you're going with Devin Singletary or Zach Moss as your RB1, your team probably is in a rebuild. Like, that's just going to be a reality. It's nothing to mess with you. Like, that's just what they are, right? Because like you said, the RB1 of that team is Josh Allen. He's the guy that when they're inside the red zone, when they're inside the 10, Josh Allen's the guy that's going to either do a quarterback draw or he's gonna roll out. I mean, that's just what it happened. That's just what it is. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to go after them for an RB1. I'm fine with McDermott trying to pump them up and trying to give them more opportunity. And I do think they will get more opportunity because I do think that Josh Allen, needs to be healthy for the Bills to be successful, right? Like, we've seen this with multiple teams that are contenders. When your QB1 is out and you got to go to your backup, look at the Cowboys last year, right? Look what happened with Dak. I mean, if Josh Allen was to go down, what are the Bills? Like, Matt Barkley is not going to be the guy that is going to take them to the Super Bowl. I'm sorry for Bills fans and Bills truthers. That's just not going to happen. And so then maybe Zach Moss and Singletary become a little bit more valuable, but then the offense is going to probably be a little bit more conservative as well. So
if you got a guy like Singletary, or you're relying on him to be anything that's going to help you out towards a fantasy championship, good luck with that. Like, let me know how that works. Shout out to JB, shout out to Ivan, shout out to Top Dog hanging out with us here. I appreciate you guys checking in. Man, the Patreon comes through. Always, man. And JB, we got to get you on the next one for sure, man. But hopefully the softball game went good. I know you had that going on. But, hey, moving to the next piece, this one felt right. This was just like, I don't think this is going to affect me too much fantasy-wise. There might be a couple games here and there. But this one just felt right, and that is Randall Cobb back with Green Bay. How are you feeling about this one? Is this just like one of those like in the fields type situations and we're not really worried beyond that point, or is there some implications as far as what Cobb may bring to Green Bay or who he may affect on that team?
You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me when the Knicks tried to bring in like Joakim Noah a few years back, and then they brought in Derrick Rose and they tried to bring like the 2012 All-Star team for 2019. Like, what is it? This isn't 2016 again, guys. Like, if Randall Cobb is really the linchpin to keeping Aaron Rodgers, you go find him.
Yeah.
But to me, like fantasy-wise, what I'm looking at right now, this is a great opportunity to go buy Amari Rodgers. This is a great opportunity.
Big time.
Because now Randall Cobb's going to probably work in the slot. That's just the reality. Devontae Adams is going to probably be out wide. You're probably going to have MVS and or Alan Lazard out on the other side. You're going to have Cobb in the slot with Tanyan, who I think secretly actually benefits from this as well. A little bit more because now there's somebody over the middle. We also don't know if Randall Cobb's going to stay healthy. Like, the guy just always feels like he's always got a hamstring pull. And so, like, for me, Amari Rodgers, this is a good, like, this is I know some people are going to be like, oh, it's Amari Rodgers. He's not, like, now you can fade him into eternity. I think you're going to be able to get him for really, really cheap. It's probably going to be on your waiver wire. At worst, you're probably throwing a 2022 third, which, I mean, we have talked about the 2022 class. It's not exactly a super strong class. It's a deep class, but not a super strong class. Yeah. So I would rather throw a dart on a guy that might get 6 or 7 targets if Randall Cobb is down with Aaron Rodgers. We've seen Aaron Rodgers to do stuff like that. And I mean, Amari Rodgers is kind of raw still in his talent, but he's legitimate and he showed off some good skills in Clemson. So that's kind of how I feel about Randall Cobb. I don't really care for Randall Cobb in fantasy. I think if anything, it's sentimental value to keep Aaron Rodgers happy in Green Bay.
Yeah, that's really what it boils down to. I think it's a great point on a buy opportunity with Rodgers there. So you have to just go after that. Look for the opportunities if you're playing Dynasty. And Randall Cobb is already like a big brother to Amari Rodgers. So if you didn't know that background, they have a connection. I believe it was Amari Rodgers' dad that coached Randall Cobb at one point. So pretty cool there that connection. They already had that connection, and Cobb's been a guy in Amari Rodgers' corner, giving him tips along the way. So you love to see it. I think long run, hey, learn from a guy like Cobb, because I think there is some similar skill sets there. And for Amari Rodgers to really take off long term, I think it's a good move for him. And again, we know talent rises to the top. So if Amari really is that sleeper type guy, you're going to see him get his on the field. It might not be right out of the gates, but as the season goes on, you're going to have to watch those targets, watch those snap counts, and really make a decision, and don't wait too long, because if he has one blow up game, well, that's what Green Bay waits for. And then they kind of seem to ride a guy's hot streak, right? And that could be the situation with Amari Rodgers. So, yeah, I definitely think as far as Randall Cobb, it's a feel-good story. I'm not too worried fantasy-wise. And if you have him somehow and he was on the end of your bench, I probably would be okay with just trying to move him. Even I would take a third probably. And if you get a second, good for you. But there's going to be some buzz out there. So sell the news. That's what it's all about. But it's a big one. Going to New York Giants, Saquon Barkley, Tony, both on the field, but starting on PUP, so they're there. Are you worried about this one? Obviously, there's been a lot of talk with Saquon. I watched a show with Stefania a while back, and she was like, look at all the telltale signs, like read the tea leaves. It is all about Saquon not showing his knee in pictures and doing this and that. And now you're hearing like, we're going to take the long road. And that's exactly what she was saying a couple weeks ago. So what does that mean? Are we worried about Saquon, or are you feeling good? Like if you have Saquon, which I know we're in a league together, I believe you have Saquon on your roster in one of the leagues. Are you feeling uneasy about this? To me, I think I feel good that Saquon is on my team and they're willing to take the long road, because you want to see the guy healthy. We've seen situations going back a couple years ago, Dalvin Cook, for example, coming back way too fast, getting a huge workload, injuring his hamstring as a compensation type injury. So are you okay with them holding off to get Saquon or working him back in slowly? Or what's your thoughts there?
Absolutely. I am perfectly fine with this. We saw this last year, I believe, with Rashad Penny, where, he started on the PUP, and then you saw, I mean, obviously he stayed on, but you could see where Saquon is going to be, I wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't shock me if he doesn't see a single touch during the preseason. So I know like people are going to freak out when I say that. I'm not surprised about it. And I actually kind of encouraged by it and I think the first few weeks are going to be his preseason. So you're going to see 18 touches. So you'll see maybe 13 carries. They'll bring Devontae Booker on for a few series. He'll see 4 or 5 catches and everything will be right in the world. I don't think we need to like panic into, oh my goodness, Saquon's knee. Like they're going to take it easy with him. He's in, obviously it's not, they have to think about the 5th year option with him this year. So they have to start thinking about financially. Do they want to re-sign him to a long-term contract? Do they just want to move on? I mean, ultimately, and I've said this in the Destination Devy Discord in the Heisman tier. So if you're in the Destination Devy Discord, you know already where I'm going to go with this. If Saquon's not on the field, you might as well blow up. You might as well just get rid of Danny Dimes. You might as well just blow up the entire offense, because he's going to be teed off on back there. Yeah. He's going to have nobody back there to help him manage. Devontae Booker is not the guy, right? Who would they bring in? Todd Gurley? Oh, so we're going to bring in a guy that has one knee? No, thank you. Like you already saw what happened last year with vanilla Jason Garrett and what he was able to not do with the offense without Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
So bringing in Kenny Golladay, bringing in Kadarius Toney wouldn't like make that situation infinitely better, right? Yeah. Would they perform a little better? Yes. But I'm telling you right now, like if Saquon's not on the field, the Giants are really going to have some questions going into the 22 off season about where they want to go. So I don't mind the long-term approach. I really don't.
Yeah, I think you're dead on there. Shout out to Louis Lewis in the comments section. Pretty funny. Says I wouldn't compare him to Penny. Yeah, we're definitely with you there. We're not comparing Saquon to Rashad Penny, especially. I think it's a great point because we're talking about a freak athlete, and I think that's probably why a lot of people expected him. Sure thing, he'll be out there week 1, but this was a major injury, a multi-ligament injury. So with that, with your star, you definitely want to take the right road. I don't have a medical background at all. Just paying attention to what's happening out there and the information we got. But I agree. And I think if Saquon's not out there, you're definitely going to be worried about, you're probably going to get a repeat of Evan Ingram with a crazy low ADOT. You're going to have Kadarius Toney, same thing, because they're going to do whatever they can to get the ball out of Daniel Jones' hands as quickly as possible, which then starts to get him used to just letting it go right away, not really thinking, and then we start to get into the turnover situation. Does he try to do too much? So hopefully you see Saquon out there, even in a limited amount of games, which would be fine. I still think you could see him possibly in week 1 in a limited number of touches. Very possible. We don't know yet. But if he's not out there, Booker, that's tough. I think Brightwell is a sneaky ad if you got room on the end of your bench coming out of Arizona there. So sneaky one to throw there. I don't think he's a world beater, but I don't think highly of Booker either. So I'm with you there.
Can we go back
moving?
Can we go back to Tony? We really focused on Saquon there. I'm not worried. Again, I'm not worried about Tony being on the COVID list. I don't know what his role is going to end up being. Especially in this offense, I could see, like, if you're thinking like high end, we're thinking Percy Harvin level. I think that's kind of the role they want him to have. But I think he's going to probably end up more like Tavon Austin. I think that's just going to be what it is. I think he's a great best ball target. I don't really know his week to week values because there's going to be some games where he's going to take one for 50 yards and a touchdown, and it's going to be great. Yeah. But good luck trying to figure out which game that is, right? Yeah. Because he's battling Evan Ingram and his poor ADOT. He's going to battle Sterling Shepard, who apparently has been moving into the slot. Mm-hmm. He's been moving around, especially with Kenny Golladay, who is now there, right? You still have Slayton kind of hanging around, and he's going to be good for a couple big plays a game. And then you got Saquon. Right. So you have all of these offensive pieces. You hope to see them being used properly, but I don't know that Kadarius Toney, I don't know exactly what the fit is yet. I think they want him to be that Swiss Army knife. It's just how well do they utilize the Swiss Army knife capabilities of what Tony's good at, right? He's good at not great catching the ball, but he's good after the catch. He's physical, and that's something that the Giants need. They need a physical wide receiver.
That's it. I think you're dead on. I think he's at his current ADP, he's a good target to take a shot on, roll the dice. There's a lot of other guys that you're probably rolling the dice as well. Really depends on your team build. Are you a contender? Because if you're a contender, there's probably guys in that area that, veteran-wise are really dropping down into that draftable range. So you look there. But if you're shooting for the future, shooting for that upside, I'm not expecting a lot out of Kadarius Toney this year, but he's got some talent after the catch, as you mentioned. So we'll see. There's a lot of mouths to feed there. Not any great ones. So he's got a chance to step up that way. Moving over, though, to a second-year wide receiver who kind of just had a disappointing year, started with some injuries. Somebody that we were very high on, especially at the Destination Debbie team. But it just didn't work out. That whole team fell apart. And we're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles here. This is Jalen Reagor. So what you saw is just a complete roller coaster in value. Very, very high to start, dropping as the season went on because the production just wasn't there on a really bad team. Then we hear, Devonta Smith comes in and Jalen Reagor just disappears and drops an ADP. And then we're like, okay, well, let's think about this a little more. Devonta Smith probably actually helps Jalen Reagor because now there's two guys that bring some speed, can get open, and you got Jalen Hurts coming into a full season. So things are looking a little better. But then we have an injury issue. So we have another lower leg injury. not a major one at this time, but are you worried about Rager? Is he going to be one of those guys that just can't get it going and his time before he even establishes himself passes because he just can't stay healthy?
I think if you're an analytical guy, yeah, you're already gone. You're already done with him, right? And I think Rager's going very quickly into if he doesn't perform well this year, I think he's just going to be just like Mecole Hardman, right? I think he's going to be a guy that you're going to want in best ball somewhere in the early to late teens. And you're just going to be happy when he goes 2 for 60 and a touchdown and be okay with that when it happens a couple weeks a year. But I don't think that Rager's done just yet. I think that from everything I've seen and heard today, Jalen Hurts seems to really be doing well with all the wide receivers and the tight ends. I'm kind of excited to see what this offense will look like. I know that there's a lot of question marks around Jalen Hurts' arm, his ability to get the ball around. Everybody's going nuts after 4 games of the regular season. Like, let's just give it a deep breath and let's see what they can do. Right? Yeah. They've got a slightly easier schedule this year. Let's see what they can do. Let's see what can happen. I agree. I think having Devonta Smith there will help. I think having a healthy Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert will help as well. I think that's kind of an underlooked thing. Like, they weren't really necessarily 100% healthy. I think another thing that's going kind of under the radar, the offensive line's healthy. They were absolutely beaten up on the offensive line last year. And I think that kind of initially hurt Carson Wentz. And I think I don't want to say it stunted Jalen Hurts' development, but it didn't give Jalen Hurts really a sense of what that offensive line, like we're talking about some Pro Bowlers that were out. So I want to see what this offense is with a healthy line, with a little more speed to it. Because, like, let's be real, Alshon Jeffrey and Travis Fulgham are not exactly your models of speed.
Yeah.
Djax was hurt. They didn't really have Rager was it. So now you bring in a little more speed. Let's see what happens with this offense. But I agree. But I'll go back to what I started with. If Rager doesn't really do much, if he's still kind of just meddling around and kind of this boom bust kind of situation, I think he's going to become more of a best ball target than he is going to be a redraft and dynasty asset.
Yeah, that makes sense for this year. And I think, that team, I'm still very concerned, but, we've heard a lot of crazy rumors. Is Hurts going to be there? Is he not going to be there? Is he going to be on thin ice? Are they going to trade for Deshaun Watson? All of these things, right? All of these things. But let's be real. Rager's going against Travis Fulgham, who had a couple games last year. He had a couple moments, but he's not a world beater. So there's definitely an opportunity. I think he just has to get healthy so he can get some rapport going with Hurts. Hurts is going to do a lot better regardless of that line because he's way more mobile than Carson Wentz. I mean, Carson Wentz is probably underrated in the mobility department for his size and the type of player he is, but he's not Jalen Hurts. And that's going to be the biggest difference for them. So if they improve a little bit on that line, just being healthy, that goes a long way. Absolutely goes a long way. So,
and I was going to even say another thing that might actually be, sorry, there's like a fly going around my face right now. It's kind of annoying. Another curveball that we haven't also considered, and I don't know if you'll bring it up, but if Deshaun Watson gets traded there, all of a sudden now
lotto ticket,
that kind of a rising tide rises all ships. Like, you're going to see the value of Rager, of Smith, of Goddard, of Ertz, of Fulgham. Like, they're all going to move up, right? Because you're going to want to be you're going to want pieces of that offense. So that's something also to kind of monitor. Like, don't sour yet on Rager because we're also still not 100% sure if Jalen Hurts is actually going to be the quarterback.
Yeah, and if you think that Rager is not the guy and he's already on your roster, like, this isn't the time to go out there and sell. This is the time to wait, see what happens. Either he figures it out, starts to improve, you're like, oh, I want to keep him, or I want to move him because he has a couple hot games, or, we see Hurts flame out. He has a terrible year. The Eagles are just awful, right? And they go and draft a quarterback next year. Boom. Now everybody goes up. Same thing. Or boom, Watson goes in. I don't think the Watson trade is going to go through or happen because there's way too much going on in that situation. But if it does, another opportunity to sell anybody on the Eagles that you don't believe in. So I do think that this is not the time to sell. Hold, wait. At ADP we're seeing, I'm pretty sure I'm seeing him go around. I don't know the exact numbers. I don't have it in front of me, but somewhere in that 130 to 155 ish range. So it's way down there from what I'm seeing in certain drafts. So either way, I think he's a good value. He's still got a lot of talent. And hey, if you're being able to draft him at a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3-ish price, I think that's going to be okay for you. I really do. I want to continue to move on, though. We didn't mention Carson Wentz. Was reported as sluggish at the beginning of his first Colts practice. He was 1 for 5 in the first team drill. Mo Alley-Cox, Jack Doyle, both dropped some balls. Wentz did finish strong, and he did complete 11 of his final 15 passes to 8 different receivers. So you like to see that. You like to see him going through those reads and spreading it around. But what's your thoughts on Wentz? Do you think it's a one-off year? Because I think he was really high on a lot of people's boards before last season, and he just dropped like a rock. Really, I think confidence was shook. He was just awful with that line. He couldn't move. He couldn't do anything. I think a change is great.
I think that was the thing. I think the first mistake they made was giving the long-term to contract. I know it's the easy thing to look back on, but outside of the 11 games that he had in that injury shortened year, that was probably the best 11 games of his career. I mean, I know the year before he was well, but last year, I think, and I hinted at it with Hurts, the offensive line was hideous. Like they were literally throwing, backup left tackles out there. I mean, and when you've got guys like Leonard Williams and DeMarcus Lawrence and Chase Young coming after, just in your own division, coming after your main quarterback who's mobile, but I don't want to say like mobility is what Wentz is known for, right?
Right.
That, like you said, it shakes his confidence. I think Philly was ready to move on. I don't think giving the second round pick value to Hurts helped. And so now he's kind of I'm looking at the DLF Superflex rankings. He's quarterback 22, right? So I think for that value, I think that's what, 7th round. I think it's pick 84. So like 7th round value. Yeah, I'm in on Wentz there. I think that in Indy, it's a much better offensive line. He's got a much better running back. His wide receivers are probably about what he had in Philly. His tight end play is down, but I think he's fine. I think as a QB2 on your rosters, I think that's probably where he's best suited in most fantasy lineups. I think when people were drafting him up at the quarterback 8 and 9, expecting him to be a 25, 30 point, super flex producer, I think that was just setting you up for disaster.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. I think, with the Colts team, I've been paying attention at that tight end position. If you're in a tight end premium, take a look at Kylen Granson as well, especially with Mo Alley-Cox, Jack Doyle starting off with some drops. Yeah, it's one day in. We don't want to overreact, but Kylen Granson is an athletic tight end that was brought in. He's a rookie this year that has some upside. So I think the coaching staff, there's been a lot of buzz consistently with him. And if you look, he had a productive college career. So check out Kylen Granson with that news as well, that the tight ends were struggling a little bit today. Not saying it's going to mean a whole lot, but we haven't got a whole lot out of Mo Alley-Cox or out of Jack Doyle or Trey Burton or any tight end, for the Colts. We just haven't seen that consistency there. Speaking of tight ends as well, they're just touching on Philly again. Very, very interesting. I don't know if you saw the news, but Tyree Jackson, so former quarterback out of Buffalo, turned tight end. This guy's athletic profile matches almost like so close to Logan Thomas. So we're seeing another situation where Tyree reportedly was turning heads and had an amazing practice, made a couple, what they said, standout plays. So is Tyree Jackson the type of guy that you're going to stash at the end of your bench? I mean, he's 6'7", 6'8", I believe, 6'7", I think. Just a massive body with athleticism to match. So that transition, it seems like the NFL is starting to figure it out a little bit.
Honestly, it's going to take Zach Ertz getting moved or a Goddard injury. It's going to be like one of those James Robinson situations where you're going to need like a cut or a trade and then something else to happen for him to be relevant, right? He's a good stat. He's a good stash to have. I think it's his second year, so I don't know if you can put him on taxi roster. So he's going to take up a roster spot.
Yeah.
But it's a good. I mean, if you're loading up in a tight end premium league, he's worth the dart. I mean, he's going to probably be a darling of training camp because there's going to be a lot of swirling around with Ertz, and they're probably going to maintain some limiting of reps between him and Goddard. Yeah. I mean, he's a good story. I remember him going, I believe he was undrafted and then signed by the Bills to be their backup to Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Didn't work out. And, and he, like you said, he has the athletic profile like a Logan Thomas. I'm sure the Eagles could probably find a way to maybe even put him into some type of package where maybe he's like a trick play kind of thing, where it's like an end around and he actually can throw the football down the field and kind of maybe that's where you get him in. But I don't really right now. I think it's going to be like a J-Rob situation where you're going to need multiple dominoes to fall in order to really be able to trust playing him.
Yeah, I think if you're in on that type of player, you're going long-term for sure. It's a stash. You might have the stash for a couple years. We saw the Darren Waller process take a long time. Logan Thomas took some time. This is another situation, but I think it's very telling if we see Tyree Jackson end up on the opening day, opening game roster. That is going to be massive because of the reports that we're getting, and it's so early in the process for his transition. So something that I am going to pay attention to. It is all about elite seekers, and a guy like that, if it does work out, there is a big time ceiling there. So he has the ability. So we'll see if he can learn what it means to be a tight end and transition some of that athleticism to becoming just a really good NFL tight end. Checking out some other tight ends. Noah Gray is continuing to follow up on the buzz we've been seeing all offseason. That is the rookie tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. He got some run today with the ones, obviously behind Travis Kelce, but he is clearly fitting in there behind Travis Kelce and just apparently soaking up all the knowledge he can. So is Noah Gray a guy that you're paying attention to? He's someone that came on as probably a late round rookie draft pick if you were checking out your teams, and you may or may not have jumped on someone like that. But if your rookie drafts are going 4th, 5th round, or you're in a tight end premium, you're probably checking out someone like him. You may have done some research, you may have not. But anytime you're talking about a potential ascending talent on the Kansas City Chiefs, I think you have to at least perk your ears up a little bit. Like Travis Kelce, he's got some great years ahead of him still. I'm not worried about his tight end. They can play a little bit longer. But what if something happened? Like, we know the value of that position within the Chiefs system. And if you're playing the long-term game, if he's learning from Kelce and he's already showing as the number 2 with that kind of similar athleticism, does that mean anything? Or are we overreacting already this offseason with a, later round tight end draft pick?
I think we might be doing a little bit of overreacting. I think there's a little bit of that. But I think we're overreacting because the situation warrants it, right? I think where you're looking at Travis Kelce being 31, right? So yes, he is getting a little bit older. He is the primary target of Patrick Mahomes. Sorry, Tyreek Hill fans. He is the number 1 guy. He is the safety blanket. He's the go-to guy. He's the straw that stirs that offense's drink. Like, that's just who he is. It's his personality. And so seeing somebody like Noah Gray performing and doing well early on in training camp, it makes you think, well, maybe he does have legs to being in maybe 2 years, being the tight end that supplants Travis Kelce at some point. The other thing that we also have to consider as well is one of the things that the Kansas City Chiefs did not address was the wide receiver 2 position. They let Sammy Watkins go. So one situation that may pop up is if Noah Gray does well, could they consider going 12 personnel and having that second tight end out there? And maybe he sees targets that way. So because your second wide receiver right now outside of Tyreek Hill is Marcus Robinson, Mecole Hardman, like not trying to poo-poo them. Like, they definitely will have a role, but they're not really meaningful starting dynasty assets. So if Noah Gray is to begin to see the field and see it early and performs well, I mean, I think he's probably, if I had to go in the deep dart tight ends at the 3 that we've talked about right now, he's probably got the closest path to fantasy relevance. right? If we had to put Tyree Jackson, Noah Gray, Kyler Granson like 1, 2, 3, I think Gray's probably number 1, Granson number 2, Tyree Jackson number 3. I don't know if it's any different for you, but that's kind of where I see Noah Gray being right now.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. If you're talking about like immediate impact, I'm probably looking at Granson first, just because of the type of player. Like, he's not really going to come in and give you that blocking. I think they brought him in to get on the field as a receiver, and I'm not thrilled about the tight ends. I'm not thrilled about the receivers either for the Colts. So that'll be interesting. But I think they're very close for me. And don't hate on my guy, Mecole Hardman. I am back on that train. I know we've been disappointed, and I'm ready to have my heart broken again. But this is a guy that I've had on a lot of my Devy teams since his freshman season. When he was coming in as a athlete recruit, so not even for sure knowing what position he was going to play. But the reports are, man, he did a ton of work this offseason, really focusing on route running specifically. We know he has the speed. He's one of the fastest guys in the NFL. Potentially even top 5 fastest guys in the NFL, right? And he's not even the fastest guy on his own team, which is just crazy. Yeah. But if that works, can you imagine Tyreek and Mecole Hardman, and then you got Kelsey in the middle, and it's just an unreal. I mean, I think Kansas City understands what that could be like. Yes, they got the possession guys in DeMarcus Robinson. They got, bringing in Cornell Powell. Obviously, you've heard some buzz early in the offseason on Pringle as well. So I think it has the potential to be kind of crazy and something you want to avoid completely. But I am back in on Mecole Hardman because of the potential. If it does work out, regardless of him being the third guy, I still think it could. I still think it could happen. I'm making it happen, Kevin. You don't. Kevin,
I tried. I tried, man. I tried.
I'm going down. I can't quit him, man. It's been too many years now. Mecole Hardman, I'm feeling good about an 800-yard season with 7-ish touchdowns, and I would be thrilled if that happens. But, we'll see.
They're going to be in 2 games. That's the problem with Mecole. That's the problem with Hardman, right? It's not that he can't produce. It's that he produces in giant chunks. Like, he must have learned from Sammy Watkins. Like, he must have been he was mentored by Sammy at some point, because Sammy Watkins is the king of 7 for 142 and 2 touchdowns in week 1, and that's 60% of his production for the entire year. Like, I'm not all the way out on him in terms of just he's completely not useful. He's a best ball target. He's a guy that you definitely want in best ball. It's just the problem is putting him in week out. You're throwing darts over your shoulder.
I'm with it. Over my shoulder with my eyes closed. Yes, I know. Yeah, after I've been spun 3 times like it was for a pinata. I get it, but I just can't quit Mecole Hardman yet. That's okay though. My name of my show is Elite Seekers, because I'm going for the moon, and if I fall short, hey, that's okay. High risk, high reward. But yes, Kevin, you're probably right. I'll probably be crying by week 3 because it just didn't work out, right? It is what it is. But if Mecole goes crazy in week 1, it might be a Sammy Watkins week 1 moment, because Sammy's not there anymore, and I'm okay with that. It'll make me happy for a little bit.
He's the new age Eddie Royal. And if you all have been playing fantasy, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He's the new age Eddie Royal.
I'm going to ride it out. Eddie Royal, man. Don't do that. And I'm going to ride it out. I'm okay with it. But shout out to everybody hanging out with us. It looks like we got a decent amount of viewers here. Appreciate that. If you guys got any questions you want to throw to us, or anything you see regarding training camp, we're all about it today. Just having some fun here. Having a conversation we would normally have on FaceTime or through our text group. So, but I'm going to keep it moving here. So moving over to the Patriots. Cam Newton did not have a good day. Man, we've been feeling good about Cam. Like, okay, there's no chance Mac Jones is there. Cam Newton, he might not even start week 1, or maybe he'll just start a couple weeks. And then it was like, there's a video circulating. Cam Newton says he's healthy for the first time in like 5 years. Here we go, Cam Newton. Like, I'm all in. This is one of the best values. And then today, are we like just dropping in stock again? Or are we realizing that we were probably right in the first place, and Cam Newton is going to have a rough go, and at some point we're going to see Mac Jones this season? What's your feelings there? Obviously the weapons, they bring in a couple tight ends and Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith. You love that for any quarterback. I think people are really down on the receiver situation. Obviously Nelson Aguilar is there. man, I was down on Nelson Aguilar, and he blew up for the Raiders. He looked really good. Seemed like he started to really just learn and become a pro's pro. You bring in a guy, Kendrick Bourne, not really going to help you fantasy-wise, but another player that overproduced coming out of Eastern Washington and had really big moments for the 49ers. And then who might be the biggest sleeper of them all and potentially the biggest value, Jakobi Meyers, who I'm hoping we see step up this year and because somebody has to. But what's your thoughts on Cam? Does he have enough weapons to do anything this year? Or is it going to be a little bit of last year and eventually Mac Jones is ready to take the reins?
I don't even know if Mac Jones doesn't start week 1. I'll be honest. I don't know if Cam even starts. I know that we saw good Cam week 2 last year against Seattle when Seattle's defense was like an open door with it like gated, like with it hooked open so that way anybody could go in. And then COVID hit, right? Like we had this conversation in Destination Devy Discord a few months back, right? Like we were talking about, well, why are we so down on Cam? And when you look at it from a fantasy production standpoint, he really didn't have any good games post-COVID. He just didn't. Like he looked like a shell of himself. You could tell that COVID had affected him. He even mentioned it in the I Am Athlete podcast. Like he even mentioned how he didn't have a chance really. He came in late to training camp. He didn't have a chance to really soak up the playbook. By the time he started to finally get rhythm, he had COVID. So he had to quarantine. He didn't have a chance to practice. He didn't have a chance to get in routine with his guys. Yeah, he has N'Keal Harry, who ultimately is probably looking like one of the worst busts in the last 5 years from an athletic profile, like from a production. Like you thought this guy was going to be like the next Calvin Johnson like prospect, and he ultimately
N'Keal Harry, Calvin Johnson. I didn't hear nobody saying that. Like, I drafted him high.
You can't even trade N'Keal Harry for a broken wishbone. You can't get anything for him. Somebody tried to trade him to me last night, and I said, "Bro, I don't want him. Like, just drop him." And he goes, "Yeah." As a Patriot fan, he's like, "I can't even do anything about that." Right. So, like, you have N'Keal Harry out. Like, he didn't have anything really to throw to. Now, again, Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar, these aren't alpha profile guys. No. But in the Bellatrix offense, because that's what I call it, the Bellatrix, you have no idea what trick he's going to pull. Like, you don't know who's going to go for 8 and 190 and 2, whatever week. You just have no idea, right? Look at Jonas Gray, right? You have no idea who's going to be the person who steps up. But they've signed guys that can go week in, week out and do their job. Right. And so whether it's Cam Newton at the quarterback, whether it's Mac Jones at the quarterback position, Jakobi Meyers, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, they're going to get the job done. They're not going to beat you 38-21. They're not going to blow the doors off. Their games are going to be ugly. Their games are they're going to run the ball a ton. They're going to use play action a lot. They're going to get the ball out quick. They're going to rely on the defense that now has a lot of players that are coming back off of the opt-out list. It's definitely going to be a different Patriots team than we saw last year. But I think they made the offense a little more balanced. I think it was too run heavy last year. I think if I remember correctly, New England was like one of the slowest teams in terms of pace. Mm-hmm. Like they were if you were betting, they were like an under dream because they took forever in between plays. I think it was something like north of 25 seconds. I'll try to look it up, but they were literally the slowest team when it came to pace.
Yeah, I don't know how much I expect the pace to pick up unless we see Mac early. Now, that definitely could change the game. Nelson Aguilar was the guy that stood out as far as day one goes, catching 2 touchdowns in the competitive reps. And he really reportedly worked the back of the end zone the best. So that's nice to see because you want to see him get not just those deep throws, catching touchdowns that way, because it's very hard to predict. It's very hard to be consistent that way. But someone that's able to work once the Patriots get within the red zone area. And he was showing good chemistry with Mac Jones as well. So there is a little tip of the hand. If Cam's not having a good day, Aguilar, their top target as of right now, showing some good chemistry with Mac. Hey, who knows? Let's pay attention to that one. Moving over to the Washington football team, we got Fitz Magic there. Did you even know? I didn't even realize this until today, but Adam Humphries is there we've talked about a lot of receivers with the Washington football team, but I had no idea where Adam Humphries went. I know he kind of had some moments with the Buccaneers, and then boom, he went over the Titans, dealt with some injuries. But he's a guy that when he's been on the field, he's a good route runner, a really good possession receiver who could make it tough if you're hoping for some sort of second receiver to break out with the Washington football team. Today, Fitzpatrick connected with him several times. And also connected on a deep pass to Terry McLaurin. So I think Terry is a guy that I'm excited about again. I think he has a great chance with Fitzpatrick to really just continue to take off because Fitz will just YOLO the ball down the field and Terry can go get it. We know that. He's shown us an amazing ability to go track the ball in the sky and just I think he's ready to build on another big year. So that should be a great one. But hearing the Humphries, catches and had a really good practice, that's interesting because, you're kind of looking at a guy like Dyami Brown, who you hope can get some reps, some important reps at some point, and maybe work his way to the wide receiver 2 position behind McLaurin by the end of the year. But we're talking about, is wide receiver 2 like even one that you want to look at if you're competing for the Washington football team? Because even if you're wide receiver 2, you're still going to be behind Gibson. You're going to be behind Logan Thomas. You might be even behind McKissick when we're talking about targets. So that becomes really messy. And, we got a guy like Kelvin Harmon, who was a sleeper pick for a lot of people, goes down with injury and has a fantastic day-to-day, making several nice catches as well. So, again, such a limited piece of info, and this is why we don't want to overreact. But I think I'm just, trying to stay away from that whole wide receiver 2 situation. I mean, we got Samuel there, too. We're not even talking about Samuel.
I was just about to say, I was surprised you haven't talked about Curtis Samuel.
Man,
he's on the PUP list, so I think that's part of the reason why. I think that's part of the reason why Humphries is probably out there. He's probably manning the spot, is my guess, which is probably where Curtis Samuel would be. I don't know how much. Again, I think it goes back to like an initial conversation we had with Zach Moss, Devin Singletary, where if you have somebody like Curtis Samuel or Dyami Brown, where are they in your fantasy lineup? Like that's always how I kind of try to view people. I don't really worry about rankings. I don't worry sometimes about tiers because I know a lot of people have like where would I want a guy comfortably in my fantasy lineup? Like that to me, that's like, where do I want a guy in my fantasy lineup? I don't want Curtis Samuel as my number 1 wide receiver on my fantasy lineup. I'm going to have a lot of issues because, like you just mentioned, Curtis Samuel probably might be the 5th or 6th option in that offense, definitely behind Terry. He's probably going to be behind Logan Thomas, who just re-signed. And we know that Fitz loves the tight end. Like Fitz with Logan Thomas going up over that seam, that's going to be like Logan Thomas is going to have a good season. I've kind of been a little bit soured on him because I was like, Fitz is now there. I'm not really sure. But like, look at Gesicki down the stretch last year with Fitz. Like that man probably won a few fantasy leagues by just him throwing straight up the seam to Gesicki. And with that big 6'8" frame of Logan Thomas, like I could see a lot of success there. You're going to have, you like you said, Antonio Gibson, JD McKissick, like those guys are going to get meaningful. Those guys are going to get meaningful touches too. So if we're talking about Curtis Samuel, maybe he's my wide receiver 3. If you're playing in a start 3 wide receiver league, but if you're not,
you're in trouble. You are in trouble if he is your wide receiver 3. Big time trouble.
I think that's where you begin to feel a little comfortable. You don't feel comfortable with him at wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 on your squads. I think you feel maybe a little bit okay, like because you're going to have some decent performances, but you're going to need to have strong flexes. I think he's best as a flex. That's where I think he's best at.
You know what? Maybe I think I am not even going anywhere near Curtis Samuel, who I like the talent, I like the player, but there's just way too many people in front of him. I like him for best ball, and that is where it ends for me, like best ball, period. Because I also do think Dyami Brown has some talent, man, and he's a guy that is going to be a stash. I wouldn't go out and acquire Dyami now if you're expecting him to rise in value this season. I think that is going to be very, very tough. But I mean, he's already fallen down there pretty far. I've seen him probably mid-third.
He's a wide receiver 50, Curtis Samuel. So he's right
Yeah.
in between Brandon Cooks and Corey Davis on
I mean,
DLF.
both of those are going to be way more consistent. Like you're talking about two guys that are going to lead their team in targets.
I mean, Michael Gallup is right in that area too. Michael Gallup, I would probably want over Curtis Samuel.
For sure, because of the pace of the offense, right? For sure. And even long term, you're looking at Amari Cooper's got to be out of there at some point. If Gallup jumps up, takes that role alongside CD, you're laughing to the bank. So all three of those, like to me, it's no question. And Corey Davis.
And Dallas's defense is trash. Yes, that is a very, very astute observation. I think the other thing too with Curtis Samuel, I think it's funny and kind of ironic. I feel like his contract and this situation is exactly like Adam Humphries when he went to the Titans, right? Like we expected him to take over the slot role in Tennessee a few years back, and look what happened.
That's fair. Yeah.
But, right? Yeah. Like I think there is some familiarity with the offense, right? With Ron Rivera's offense coming from Carolina. So picking up the playbook will not be a problem. That won't be the issue. I think the issue is just going to be the opportunities for targets. And I think at the end of the day, how are they going to manufacture 8 touches, 10 touches a game? How are they going to manufacture that? Without taking away from, like, if you give them running back touches on end arounds, well, now you're taking away from Gibson. Which I don't think they're going to do.
Yeah, I think, Ron Rivera is going to be his only hope. Obviously, he's bringing back a former player that he loves, but I just can't do it. Not when you're talking about those guys there. Like, it's a no-brainer to me. Like, get out of that Samuel situation if he's on your rosters now, because there will be some buzz. He might do something. Hopefully, he gets on the field. Obviously, he's got I think it's a growing issue right now. But you mentioned Michael Gallup as well. Did you see him flip over the fence on that and tweak his ankle?
Where are they playing? Like, what are we doing? I think I saw
the middle school softball field, man. What is happening?
Where are we playing? Like, Jerry's got money out. Jerry could go buy Mike Williams over him. Jerry could literally go buy half the state of Texas right now. And he's got his players playing literally next to the Babe Ruth baseball fence. Like, what is going on? What are we like? What? And not to mention, the fence is literally 5 feet behind the corner of the end zone. Like,
I thought he was trying to look cool or something, but he legit just didn't have room to stop, and he flipped hard, and his ankle kind of rolled in a weird. I'm happy that it's a minor tweak.
Like, it felt like when I was watching Major League and the movie, and we got a stunt double to go jumping over the fence. Like, that's the kind of stuff that just happened. Like, that's the kind of stuff that can potentially linger. And I'm not saying that it's going to linger and it's going to instantly affect Gallup and you need to go fade him into the. But those are the kind of things that But those are the kind of things that people are going to be like, well, he's not practicing. He looks a little sluggish.
This is what I expect to happen at the Houston Texans practice, not at the Dallas Cowboys practice. This is 100%. If I saw this and this was a Texans receiver, because the Texans were, 100%. I'd be like, yep, that makes sense.
Here's the worst there. Well, and here's the worst part. That play is going to be on Hard Knocks. What are the odds? What are the odds that play is on Hard Knocks? Because they've already been there. So you're gonna
probably a GIF right now. It's probably a GIF already. They're gonna show
that play 4 or 5 times, and we're all gonna be like, "Oh wow, that really was that stupid." We're gonna relive stupidity again and again and again.
Hey, let's move over there because we could beat that one to the ground. Let's move over to the.
Can we talk about
what's
that?
Though?
Can we talk about that?
Let's get to that one at the end. Man, I want to talk about the Broncos a little bit, though. You got Courtland Sutton, full participant. Man, this is a guy that is getting disrespected across the board. Quarterback situation is extremely questionable. But we're talking about Courtland Sutton is a guy was getting drafted near a DK Metcalf just a year and a half ago. So now we're like, oh, they had the injury. They're not coming back. No. I get it. I know Jerry Jeudy is ascending. He had another good practice today. You got KJ Hamler doing what he does in limited reps, extremely fast. But Courtland Sutton is that big target they need. I know they tried to give it a go. Tim Patrick gave everything he could last year. But if Courtland Sutton is truly healthy and back, do we not expect him to at least get 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns? Like, I feel like this is a shoe-in for this type of guy. Like, I really believe that, especially if you're, if either Locke figures it out, which is, oh gosh, but he likes to throw the ball to Sutton. He loves him. Or if they go Teddy, and you're a lot more consistent. So I don't know. I think that Courtland Sutton being back is big news, and I still think that people are going to regret letting him fall to whatever ADP he's at right now, because I think it's way too low.
His ADP is 69. So wide receiver 26. Right between Deontay crazy. Johnson and Cooper Kupp. Yeah. My thoughts on Courtland Sutton, if Drew Lock is the quarterback, Courtland Sutton will be the wide receiver one of that offense.
Yeah.
If Teddy Two Gloves is the quarterback of that offense, Jerry Jeudy is going to be the wide receiver one. And I think it's just because of the different styles. Drew Lock is more of a YOLO Ryan Fitzpatrick kind of thrower. That's just kind of the nature. He's going to push the ball down the field a little bit more. So you're going to see a lot more jump balls. And that's really where Courtland Sutton is. Like, that's where his skill set is better equipped. Right.
Yeah.
Not saying that he can't, not that it's saying that he's going to just get completely ghosted if Teddy Bridgewater would be there. But I feel like Bridgewater's going to probably lean more to the short and intermediate routes, where Judy's quickness and acceleration, which we've seen countless times in video after video. I don't know if you saw the video from this summer where he absolutely dusts the corner.
We knew coming in, this is one of the most deadliest route running footwear guys in the game at the wide receiver position.
I think Denver's actually a really good offense, a sneaky good offense. I know a lot of people are down on Drew Lock. I know a lot of people are. I get it. He's not great. He's barely average, right? Like, we know this. But
they got a lot of weapons. They got a lot of weapons.
If we thought last offseason he had a lot of weapons and they're all back, like, why can't we, and they upgraded the backfield. Like, let's be honest, they upgraded the backfield from Phillip Lindsay to Javonte Williams. Like, they upgraded that position. Like, why can't they be? Why can't they, and I'm not saying they're going to be 13-4 or 14-3 and going to go push the Kansas City Chiefs for the division, but they could be a good football team, and they could be a very good fantasy football team for a lot of us.
Yeah.
They could be that sneaky, they're the fantasy football team that everybody kind of was under the radar on because we kind of poo-pooed the quarterback. So therefore, all of a sudden, we just completely lost faith in all of them. So we're only going to focus on Javonte and Jeudy. And all of a sudden, like you said, what stops Courtland Sutton from 70, 1,000, and 10 to 12 touchdowns? What stops that other than his health? And if he's fully healthy, we've seen guys come back from ACLs. We've seen guys come back from major injuries. There's nothing to think that he can't be a 70, 1,000, and 10 touchdown wide receiver. And that's a good wide receiver. Like, I would want Courtland Sutton being my wide receiver 2. That's where I would feel comfortable. I would love him in my wide receiver 3, because if that's my case, I've probably got 2 really good ones in front of him. And if my wide receiver 3 is giving me that, that's great. But if he's my wide receiver 2, I think I'm okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of weapons. So I really do hope one of those quarterbacks steps up. Teddy, I think, is just so limited on his ceiling. Love the guy, love his story. But Drew Lock is the one that, nobody's betting on this, but what happens if we get that Josh Allen type of improvement? I mean, he has the mentality to just go out there and go for it. He's either going to go down in flames, or he's going to just rise to become one of those next young up-and-coming quarterbacks. And you don't think that this guy who was bumping young Jeezy, knowing every word, you don't think this guy's paying attention out there to, the Broncos need to go get Aaron Rodgers. They're going to get Aaron Rodgers that whole offseason. Then they bring in Teddy Bridgewater. If Drew Lock has at all what we hope he does, we don't think so at this point. We haven't seen it, but it's also been quite rough. But if Drew Lock has any type of competitiveness in him, that could be a massive chip on his shoulder for the positive. So even if you are going to trust your players, your playmakers, and just gun it, right? As long as he's fairly accurate, Courtland Sutton healthy, going to make you look good. Noah Fant, gonna make you look good. Jerry Jeudy gonna separate so much you don't even have to be crazy accurate. Gonna make you look good. KJ Hamler can't guard him short, can't guard him deep. Gonna make you look good. Tim Patrick, underrated. You're talking about now we're talking about like fifth, sixth target, right? Now we got 2 running backs that can
we're not even talking about the backfield, right? And
that's what I mean.
And Albert O's still there too. Like he's another,
and he doesn't have to win games. The Broncos have a solid defense. He doesn't have to go out there and win these games for them. He has to take care of the ball. So I think if they kind of take the Baker Mayfield route, for example, right, start to dumb it down, right? We saw Baker, and I was like, this is not fun Baker anymore. Like I was so bored with the start of that whole coaching change. And I'm like, this is terrible. Like we're going to get another game manager now. But that wild, like, lion that's caged up Baker, we kind of saw that along the way. Yeah. Like as the season went on, they started to open the playbook a little more. And that was even without OBJ, right? So I think there's way more weapons at the Broncos. For me, it's not so much of a Josh Allen type jump. It'd be more realistically thinking of that Baker Mayfield situation where, I think if they can figure out how to make it a lot simpler for him and kind of hone him back a little bit and then rebuild and bring out those characteristics where he's willing to take some chances, because you want a quarterback that is going to take some chances. You don't want a guy that's just not confident in himself and is a complete game manager, because that's going to be tough to win the big game. And I think the Broncos and John Elway and that whole franchise has set an example that they want to go after it. I mean, it wasn't pretty against my Seahawks a few years ago, but they went out and got a Peyton Manning to go to the Super Bowl and try to win one. So, you know what? I think Drew understands the situation, and Drew Lock is the guy that I believe will win the job. And if he doesn't, right now it's a wrap, because I don't see him going to another team, getting a shot. It's just not going to be a situation. There's going to be rookies that teams are probably going to take a shot on. Longer amount of years for a cheaper amount of money. So why not, right? So, but if he comes out hot, hey, who knows? And at the ADP, I don't even know what his ADP is right now. Teddy might be going earlier than him at this point, which I've seen in a few drafts.
Drew Lock is 126. Teddy Bridgewater is about a half a round later, 134.
There you go. Yeah, so it's way down there.
I mean,
I'm not saying go out there and bet the farm on Drew Lock, but I am saying, to me, it's an interesting situation with a guy that has shown some success, some moments, some flashes, some willingness to go for the big game. And, if they can hone that in and really dumb it down for him, hey, maybe Teddy comes in there and teaches him how to be more controlled in situations, helps him read situations better.
Just hopefully Teddy doesn't teach him the last. Well, I just hope that Teddy doesn't teach him the last 2 minutes, because he was pretty brutal last year in Carolina.
That's where you go to YOLO. That's where you hope YOLO kicks in a little bit.
Like for me, I hope Drew Lock could end up being Ryan Tannehill. That's what I hope. Like his ceiling could be is Ryan Tannehill. They're very similar, right? They don't need to throw the ball a ton. They can use their legs, because Drew Lock has sneaky good mobility. Use his legs, play action throwing, relies on the running game. Like I could see, like that's where I would want Drew Lock to be. I don't think he gets there. I think he gets closer to Baker. But I think like if you thought his ceiling is Ryan Tannehill, I think everybody would take that in a heartbeat.
And get this is my favorite quote from all of training camp so far, and this might end up finishing as my favorite quote. But this is Teddy Bridgewater. I'm a survivor. You can throw me in the jungle, and I'm going to come out with a fur coat and a headband I made with some leaves. Teddy B is coming with the heat early on in the offseason, and you love to see it. That is just this crazy. If there's anybody out there that is great with Photoshop, I would love to see Teddy Bridgewater coming out of the jungle with a fur coat and a headband made of leaves, please. That is gold. And
I need it.
Man, you know what? Like, if he wins the job with that mentality, I'm ready for it. I'm here for it.
You need to put that on a shirt with Elite Seekers on the back.
Oh man, that's what you need to do.
You need to really like.
Maybe I just need to go get that audio that's the new intro.
Yeah, like you need to get like that needs to like come on in the intro, like him just coming down on like a vine, but like with the leaf, bandana with the fur coat. Like, we need Teddy, like
You got to
There's
be a
market
tiger in this
opportunity.
league. You got to go out there. You got to want to eat. You got to be hungry. And
Yeah.
Teddy's been around,
Hey,
man. Teddy was
you
a
want
top
that.
prospect and went down with an injury that we thought we would never see this guy play football again while he's with the Vikings. So kudos to Teddy Bridgewater, man. Definitely not rooting against him. Just
No, not
putting
at all.
out what I see. He's just done a really good job as far as managing games. But yeah, that Broncos, I think we've talked about the Broncos enough. Henry Ruggs, very interesting one. Checking out some analytics wise, guys coming into their second year is actually JJ Zacharyson, one of his pods in the last week, talked about second year wide receivers, went through the analytics as far as breakouts, what it kind of takes, what that looks like in comparison to other positions around them. And Henry Ruggs lines up almost perfectly when looking at the stats the last, I believe it was like 8 seasons or so, maybe more. This is a guy that came in and added 13 pounds. I don't think that this information has gone around enough, but Henry Ruggs added 13 pounds. I started paying attention. I really loved Ruggs coming out just because of the speed situation. I like that. Obviously, when we saw him with the Raiders, it was not looking good. Nelson Aguilar busted out in a big way, and neither Henry Ruggs or Bryan Edwards broke out like we had hoped. We didn't really see too many flashes, but hearing what Henry Ruggs has done this offseason, hearing that he's put on 13 pounds, hearing Derek Carr talk about the differences as far as the different routes he's able to run, and then you hear, the Raiders talking about, hey, we're really happy he bulked up because we want to put him in situations where he can be a yak guy, where he can be a guy that we hand off to as well. And then if you load him up with targets, I mean, he's competing with Bryan Edwards, who we didn't see break out. Nelson is gone. So he's got a great opportunity to take on a bunch of targets that Nelson Aguilar had last year. You add in a guy like Smoke Brown, right? Comes in, is a great pro for sure. But right away you hear Bryan Edwards and Ruggs are manning those top two positions, and they're going to move Brown around to figure out, get him in where they can.
Yep.
Hey, there's a situation where Ruggs ends up being a massive, massive breakout in year two. We know Davante Adams isn't going there now. There was buzz there with Carr and Adams matching up. So I'm feeling really good about having Ruggs on a lot of my teams. What's your thoughts on Ruggs? Is he a guy that you're in on, or are you still worried or still out? I think a lot of the community has been out on Ruggs at this point, and you probably can bring up his ADP as well.
Yeah, ADP is 154, so wide receiver 60 according to DLF.
That's crazy.
I mean, you're talking about Gabe Davis, Bryan Edwards is wide receiver 62. T.Y. Hilton's in that area, Tony. So you're getting into the dart throw section over your back shoulder, blindfolded, not sure if you're looking at the dartboard correctly.
Yeah.
That's the level he's at.
Which completely situation-wise just doesn't seem right. He's not going to be the number one receiver because they have a guy named Darren Waller. You might have heard of him, right?
He's kind of good. His production profile, obviously, in college was not ideal. It was pretty poor. I'm actually looking at the Destination Devy analytics database put together by our own Jordan Backus. You got to follow that guy.
Shout out to JB.
You got to follow that guy. He is a wealth of knowledge. The dude's an analytical genius.
There's his Twitter handle on the screen.
Dude is a genius when it comes to data, and he's put together this crazy database that's held over at Destination Devy. It's absolutely amazing. And I'm looking at, Ruggs' numbers, and they're just not good. Right. Yeah. But he's fast. And so he fits the Raider profile of being a really quick wide receiver. Yeah. My initial thoughts are the exact same as Hardman when it comes to Ruggs.
Yep.
He's going to have games where he's going to be well. He completely torched the Chiefs in Kansas City last year. If I remember, that was the game where he just went off. Like you saw his upside. The problem was his consistency with that. Right. Yep. You're right in saying Nelson Aguilar is gone. They brought in Smokey Brown. I'm not exactly sure what that really does to the offense. The one thing that maybe is a pro, if you're talking about the wide receivers this year, is the Las Vegas Raiders decided that they didn't really care about their offensive line. And so they did not address it. And
great point.
And so it's gonna be a harder time running the football. So you would envision that Derek Carr is going to be throwing the football a little bit more. Now, to what extent, we don't know, right? Yeah. So if you said to me, hey, Henry Ruggs is going to have $5,807 right now, would you take it?
Yeah.
Would you take it? I think you take it, right? The question is where does he fit on a fantasy roster? He's got to be your flex. He's got to be a flex option. I can't put him in my lineup.
Sure.
And, can't put him in your lineup and feel comfortable.
Yep.
But he's one of those guys like wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 off your like if he's coming off your bench and you need a spot starter. I don't think he's going. I don't know what his week to week is going to be. Right. You would hope he sees 5 or 6 targets a week. Question is quality targets, right? Like how many times is he going to be overthrown or underthrown because he's so fast. Like the man is super quick.
And this is where I think there's a couple pieces to this. So I have him higher than Mecole Hardman, who I like. I do like Mecole Hardman. Unfortunately, I do like him still. I can't quit him yet. But again, it's a guy that has an opportunity in the Chiefs offense. I'm gonna roll the dice. But you guys got to remember, like, especially if you've listened for the last 30 minutes of the show, I'm a guy that likes to load my teams with those guys that have the crazy high ceiling. So I typically will pass on the safe receiver. Now, depending on the build of your team, that's if I have, 8 receivers that have the ability to have a 100-yard game or have the ability to break out for 8 touchdowns in the season, okay, I'm okay with that. I can play matchups that way. It's almost like me taking a chance with a best ball style, right? And that's how I play. I go after that because those, say 1 or 2 of those guys hit from the receiver position and they find some consistency. Now you're laughing because you were able to get a player at such a low value that we talked about, the close your eyes, throw the dart backwards or whatever. You're getting one of those guys at that value and double or tripling in terms of what they bring to your team. So I'm okay with that. And Ruggs, to me, is even a better situation just because Mecole Hardman is we're not talking about just the number 1 tight end in Kansas City. We're talking about also arguably a top 3, but arguably maybe a number 1 overall wide receiver. So depending on whose list you're looking at. So you're talking about 2 major situations. Now, you bump them up a little more because of the Kansas City Chiefs offense versus a guy in the Raiders offense. But going back to the Raiders, we don't have a true number 1 target outside after Darren Waller. Darren Waller, true number 1 target, 100%, but that's from the tight end position. You still need receivers to do well.
Yeah, you need somebody.
My concern is the offensive line you mentioned. Now, does that affect Ruggs? And they know that. Is he not going to be able to get the ball down the field? Or are they going to have that time? Now, he's fast as hell. He can get down the field pretty quick. So there's that.
Can you use him in a bubble screen? Can you use him in short
This is where I'm intrigued even more hearing that he put on 13 pounds because that's exactly how I feel. I feel like they are going to set him up in wide receiver screen situations, in jet sweep situations, and use that speed, really utilize that because they're not going to have Nelson Aguilar stretching the field. They are going to have Smokey Brown there. Hey, that's okay. But it feels like a great shot because we're talking about a guy, I think he's 22 now, like 22, right? I believe so. We're talking about a guy at 22 years old that has a chance at a 1,000-yard season. And I'm going to go ahead and say that out here right now. I believe that Henry Ruggs will break out in a big way. He will barely crack 1,000 yards. And I think he gets at least 8 touchdowns this year. That's how much I believe he breaks out and the Raiders need him to. Because I just think there's a lot of factors going his way and Darren Waller commands so much attention that if you're single coveraging and worried about Waller in the middle and your single coverage on a guy like Ruggs, if he did improve route-wise and if Gruden and team, find ways to be more creative with them and really feed them the ball, I think Gruden is one of the most competitive guys out there as well. You got Mayock, you got Gruden, and those dudes, you think they feel good hearing about CeeDee Lamb? You think they don't want to go out there and feed the hell out of Ruggs and go, yeah, okay, now look at us. I guarantee they don't want to go. I think there's a little bit of that to this situation as well. And I think that's a big factor that they have so much pride. They're like, Ruggs, you better come back, put on a bunch of muscle because we are going to give you the ball and we're going to show everybody why they should not be doubting you. They're going to pump him up and he's going to have the confidence, all that confidence in the world. Derek Carr's already speaking up the game because he's going to be on the same page as the coaches. And there's opportunity. Aguilar is gone. So that's just my thoughts on it. And I really
I'm gonna
believe
give you-
1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns is in the
I'm
realm.
gonna play a little guessing game with you real quick on this one. If I told you his weight and he's 5'11", he's now going to be about 200, 205 pounds.
Okay.
There's a rookie wide receiver in that class, and it might be somebody who's on your list who has almost the exact same build. And we are talking about that guy a lot higher. Can you name him?
So at 200-ish pounds from this year's rookie class.
No. From his rookie class. So from Ruggs' rookie class, who we are talking a ton about. He might be on your list.
He might be on my list. Second year guy. Yep. Wide receiver. 200. Is it? It's not Ayuk.
It is Brandon Ayuk.
Ayuk
is 6'205". So we're talking about 5'11", 200, 205.
Yeah.
Ayuk 6'205". Like if we're talking about these guys being, and they kind of almost play the same kind of role, right? The deep threat, but also can really stretch you in the intermediate. Like I think I'm talking myself into Henry Ruggs here.
I'm telling you, there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of factors.
When you start to put like one of the big drawbacks about Ruggs was the fact that he was lighter, right? He came in 5'11", 188. Like we all like, again, a lot of analytics guys like to show you the data that says guys that are in the 180s, forget about it, fade them into the oblivion. Now that he's put on that weight, now that he's closer to Ayuk, I'm not saying he's going to be Brandon Ayuk. So anybody who watches this, please do not go. But what I'm talking about, when you're talking about Brandon Ayuk being drafted at wide receiver 26 and Henry Ruggs being drafted at wide receiver 62,
I'm just saying.
Like, there's no reason to think that Henry Ruggs can't be like in the wide receiver 40s, and all of a sudden you found a massive value gap.
That's what I'm saying. So that's, for me, we're looking at where they're at ADP, the opportunity, the talent, the speed, and the fact that Gruden and Mayock are not going to want to go out like chumps. I would be pissed, and I know they are. So it is going to be an interesting situation. Let us know in the comments if you're listening to this. What do you think of Henry Ruggs? Is he someone that you're on at current ADP? Do you believe there's a chance that he has a big breakout like we're talking about? Or are we just crazy altogether? But I'm big on that. I wanted to touch on one more topic real quick before finishing off with the big news that you mentioned earlier, which may or may not be big news. So rookies right now, rookie wide receivers. So all offseason, we're hyping guys. We're hyping Bateman. We're hyping Elijah Moore. Kind of that second tier, right? We know Jamar Chase is going to do Jamar Chase things, but let's drop down a little bit more. We know Devonta Smith. I think, yes, you love him or you hate him, but I think overall people are like, yeah, we understand he's the guy in Philly. But then you start getting into Rashad Bateman, a little more question-wise. Then you start getting into Elijah Moore. Now we've hyped these guys. Now we started to dive in. Okay, we understand what's first-round wide receivers. Now let's talk about Bateman. Oh, dang, he really is good. He really does everything well, like we said last year before we start hating on him for going to the Ravens, because the Ravens are only going to pass 3 times a game. No, we know that it's going to improve when you bring in better talent. But now, today, you hear Rashad Bateman behind Sammy Watkins. You hear Elijah Moore behind Keelan Cole. So people start to freak out. Go talk to your league mates. If they got Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, get on that. Like, figure it out. Go offer if you're a competitive team, go offer your 2022 first for either one of these guys, because yes, there's some guys there. You know, if you have an early first, that's a different ball game. But 2022 is not the class that I'm absolutely in love with. It's just not, right? Go talk to these guys about a second, right? And then bump up to it for late first if you have to.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But I'll bet you there's a chance in some leagues you can go offer a second and a third and probably scoop one of these guys up, especially if it stays this way for the next week. Yes, one day it just opens eyes. People get a little nervous. 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 1 week, 2 weeks in, right before the preseason kicks in or the first preseason game, I'll be out there. Hey, how you feeling? You seen all the buzz? Oh, man, I bet you're a little disappointed. Your guys are not out there starting. But who in their right mind is putting Keelan Cole over Elijah Moore? You're crazy if you are. It ain't happening. It's not happening, okay? Sammy Watkins is not going to be better than Rashad Bateman. I like Watkins. I think he's a solid pro. He's not going to be a big-time fantasy guy. I think Rashad Bateman has that ceiling. They know that. They went out and brought in a whole bunch of receivers. They brought in Tylan Wallace as well because they understand how much they need to improve. They didn't bring those guys in to just continue to run only. They were like, we need a little bit more balance. We got Gus, we got JK. Also, JK, you're hearing great reports about him in the passing game. So another guy that's fallen off, right, as far as value, to the point where he shouldn't have. He's still not extremely cheap, but he has a way higher ceiling, I think, than where he's going. But back to that, rookies, pay attention to these guys. If they're not starting out of the gates, people freak out. Any position.
What did I text the group? I texted the Destination Devy team this morning in a group chat, or maybe it was yesterday when we started talking about football. The first few weeks are like the prime window to get that buy low. Like we're hitting rookie overhype season, right? So we've hyped these guys. Yeah. We've seen Zach Wilson throw darts to Elijah Moore. And once Zach Wilson finally signs his rookie deal and gets over like the language pieces and he's in training camp, he's going to start throwing to Elijah Moore. We're going to see the highlights again. Everybody's going to be back on that train, right? So if you can go, I mean, I sold last night. What did I sell? I sold Elijah Moore. I got to look it up, but I sold Elijah Moore, Diami Brown, and Michael Pittman for Chase Claypool and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, come on. I will sell those guys right now because people will freak out. People will panic and they will see these shiny objects. I'll go get the Claypool, who I think is going to be a top 20 pick. And I'll come back in about a week and a half or 2 weeks when Keelan Cole still is playing in the first preseason game and Elijah Moore's not doing much. And I'll come back in with a second round pick and say, hey, you want to give them to me? Because the reality is, like, when I look at the 2022 class, which we've kind of alluded to, right? Guys that I probably would want over Elijah Moore: Treylon Burke, Garrett Wilson, maybe David Bell, maybe. Depending on, I guess, maybe David Bell is going to kind of be like that Rashad Bateman, right?
I think Elijah Moore is for me. Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore are kind of in that same tier. Like I have Elijah. Yes. I think like, we'll see that develop.
And that's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying is like, when we're looking at where 2022 picks are lining up, and we're looking at, okay, am I okay with giving up a 22 and 22 first? Okay, if I'm giving up 107 or 108. Would I rather Treylon Burke or Elijah Moore? I'm probably going to want Treylon.
Treylon, yeah.
Like I'm going to want Treylon. He's just going to be that good, and that's not just
crazy.
I know Ray GQ has pushed him. I know, like we've had our conversations about Treylon. Like
big physical freak that can play.
That dude's going to play, and he's going to play well in the NFL. But like you said, like Garrett Wilson's not everybody's cup of tea. David Bell is not everybody's cup of tea. But so
they'll rise. They'll rise,
right? So they'll rise with their production. So you'll start to like. So it's like, okay, if I've got 110 or 111 in my back pocket, can I go and fire and go find an Elijah Moore because I'm gonna take Elijah Moore or Chris Olave, right? Like, so again, you might need to go find an Ohio State homer and push that squeaky wheel and say, hey man, here's a pick that you can go get
out there,
and you'll get them. Right, you'll get somebody with that.
Was that a Quinn Ewers reference?
That might have been a Quinn Ewers reference. That might have been.
We'll say that for another show. Big time news with Quinn Ewers. Crazy, crazy.
But it's one of those things. Like when you look at what's going on, like when you look at the landscape of what you have in your pick arsenal right now, you have to look at, is the person I'm trading for better than what I'm going to be able to get at that pick? Yeah. Right. Like we've talked. A lot of people are talking about it.
Yeah.
Like 2022 like we all were like, get the 2021 class, get all those picks, and then look what happened in the second round. That thing, like everybody started to see by like pick 203, the cliff just fell straight off.
If you want to be a great dynasty player or a redraft player, it doesn't really matter. Like this is why I tell people, like, if you really enjoy college football, you enjoy football altogether, go join a basic Devy league because you'll be so far ahead on the research that you do, even if it's not a whole, like people are worried, like, oh, I don't have that much time. Hey, just like Dynasty, you didn't have that much time, right? You find it because there's resources out there. And 10 years ago, guess what? I'm with you. Today, there is a lot of Devy resources out there. We're here to help you. There's so many other great shows, great people out there in the community. Put in hashtag Devy, hashtag C2C, and you're going to get a lot of great information. Find the hashtag of your favorite college football teams, whatever it is. But you're right on, man. Like, you have to pay attention ahead, and then it allows you to better gauge what picks you're willing to give up in the future for guys now. Who do you believe in the long run? Who's going to help you now? Is it a win now situation? Are you willing to take a loss in the future to win this year? That's okay.
Well, I will say with a caveat to all of this, right? I know we're gonna laugh about this one. Don't go trade Justin Jefferson for James Conner. Don't go do something like that. Don't trade Elijah. Yeah, sorry, Ray. Don't go trade Elijah Moore for Melvin Gordon. Don't go do that. Don't put yourself in a hole. Oh well, I need to win, so I'm gonna burn this rookie wide receiver because I can go find another one. Don't get into that, because you're gonna regret. And then what ends up happening is you make the mistake, and you compound the mistake by overloading draft capital assets and other things down the road, and you put yourself at a loss. So if you're gonna sell for a price that you feel is comfortable for you, that you can't say no. If someone walked up to me and said, if somebody walked up to me and said, "Hey, I'm going to give you a 2022 second and a 23 first for him," sign me up, take it. Because and you could say, "Oh, you ain't going to get that, Brandon." Trust me, I see daily trades where I see some really dumb stuff where people just don't care, and they trade, draft picks like they're candy. Like they're just handing them out to people. That's all they're going to do. So it's like, you got to be very careful with where you're doing it, like where you're trading, but also just be very mindful. Like, don't get, if you want to trade, if you want to get rid of them right now because it's overhyped season, you can get the max value and then come back in week 1 or 2, do it. But be smart with it. Don't be smart. Don't go trade him for cheap and then try to go buy him for cheap.
And if you're not sure, go out there, talk to your favorite analyst, your favorite friend that does that research, and just bounce your ideas off them. I am an analyst at this point in the game, right? I get to research this like crazy. And I still have conversations with you. I have conversations with Jordan. I have conversations with Ray, with JB, with other people. This is important. And, I like to talk through these situations because there might be something you're not thinking about. And there's nothing wrong with being patient. I think that's a great call out. I love that. The last piece of news that I don't think it's too much news, but it's always a shocker when things are buzzing, right? And you get a guy back, and then there's always that downer. And that's Dak Prescott. Had an MRI. Shoulder strain. So you're going to see him probably out. My guess is for the rest of the week. They said day to day. Are you concerned?
Right now, no.
Yeah.
Right.
But something to pay attention to, right?
It's something to monitor.
Yeah.
It might be if you want to go try to get Dak for cheap. This might be the last window that you can find him in.
Good point.
Because, someone who was already on the fence about Dak's injury, wasn't sure if his ankle was going to heal correctly. Now, all of a sudden, his shoulder, now he's compounding injuries, and now he's got a shoulder injury. Like, it's probably because he was training to get himself in shape. And, hey, his arm got tired.
Yep.
Right? Like, you can't. I'm not going to look into something in July and say a shoulder strain. I talked to, Jeff Mueller, who, great fantasy analyst. Go find him on Twitter, JM Thrive PT. Like, go find the man. Go talk to him. He's a wealth of injury knowledge. I mean, go ask any fantasy injury analyst, and they'll probably tell you this is a nothing burger, right? But there's going to be people who are going to want to jump off the Dak train, who would much rather go for Justin Herbert, or maybe drop down to like a Joe Burrow, or maybe even go after entertain a Justin Fields or a Trey Lance. And if you're a little, you probably could go offer, one of them 1-for-1 maybe, and even get Dak, and you get an upgrade, right? Or maybe even, if you're trying to sell Dak, again, sell smartly. Don't undervalue what he's capable of doing. We saw what he's capable. As we saw earlier, Dallas's defense is not great. They're going to throw the football a lot. Yes, the offensive line is better. Yes, Zeke will be more efficient. That offense is going to hum. If Dak Prescott is quarterback, that offense is going to hum.
Facts.
You got a quarterback one sitting in your pocket that is proven. Mike McCarthy has proven to produce quarterback ones before. I'm not worried about it this second. If it lingers maybe into like week 3, week 4, then I may have a little bit of concern that he's ready for the start of the season. Yeah. But right now, it's July 28th. We got, 5 weeks till the season starts? I'm just not going to
That's where it is for me. I think it's not a leg, so we're not talking about a compensation like leg injury situation. Right. So that's great news. Now shoulder, they said minor, so I'm going to trust them right now because we have no other reason not to. But it's something to monitor. I think following beat writers is really, really important. Like just listen, read the tea leaves, see what's going on, and make your best judgment. But if we start to see this linger as a shoulder injury, that can be a little more worrisome. Right now, I'm not worried at all. The ceiling is too high, and I was out there trying to scoop up Dak wherever I could after his start last year, and when he went down with the leg injury, right? I was lucky enough to get him in like 3 or 4 leagues because people panic, right? And yeah, you lose him for the season, but when we're talking about dynasty, this is a guy you want on your team. So hopefully things continue to work out for the Cowboys, for Dak Prescott, because he is a stud, and you want to see him out there with those weapons that they have. Blake Jarwin is back as well. A guy that brings some athleticism to a position that Dalton Schultz did a really good job. I think you're still going to see him have a role this year, but adding him, Cooper, Zeke looks freaking lean as hell this year, a lot quicker. So I'm excited to see where that goes. Another guy that I think has a chip on his shoulder. Feels like he's been disrespected.
That guy just went 5th in a startup draft that I just did for Best Ball. Zeke went 5th ahead of Saquon. So that guy's got
bouncing back, man. Yeah, he could have a couple
for 1 year.
Seasons.
I'm on. I would be.
Yeah, this year
I would not be surprised if Scott Fishbowl, Zeke is on many rosters.
Facts. So, but yeah, man, that's all I got. I know we're gonna have a ton more over the next couple of days. So hey, we're always having conversations anyway. We might jump on here again and do some more instant reactions. Wow. This was fun, man. I appreciate you jumping on. I literally hit you up like 10 minutes before we jumped on. Yeah,
it's fun. I mean, we can. I mean, these are fun. Obviously, if you want to, I would love to do this again. I'm sure you'll probably contact me after this.
Probably will happen. Yeah.
But, drop Ben a DM if you got a question. We'll answer it. We'll do the best we can. We're not perfect, but we'll give you what we think. We'll try to give you some, decision on where we think guys are going to fall. I mean, it's early in the season, and this is just the beginning. This is a grind, and you just gotta, enjoy it. Enjoy football. It's back. Like that's the thing. Enjoy football. It's back. Like we got college coming around the corner, which I'm sure we'll probably talk about at some point. Like,
yeah, it's there.
Prospect season is here. We didn't even touch the whole Texas-Oklahoma drama. We didn't touch Muir's drama. Like
that's the whole another episode. We might have to.
We didn't touch
to jump on here.
Like we didn't touch a whole bunch of things. Like I think we'll eventually catch them. And I'm sure we'll get other people that want to jump on that probably want to chat with us in this. And we'll just have some fun. Like that's just what it is. It's not going to be. I don't think. I mean, we had some structure tonight, but it's going to be fun. We're just going to have a conversation. So
no structure, just Twitter.
Just just literally. It's literally just have fun. Just have some fun. You watch me swat at some mosquitoes down here.
Hey, have fun with all the information coming in, all the highlights that you're going to see from your favorite team's training camps, from your favorite players' training camp videos. But before you make any big decisions, trades, pickups, whatever it might be, go out there, talk to people you trust. Just talk through it. Because sometimes we get so excited when we haven't seen true football for a while that we make some crazy decisions that we regret. So that's what I try to do and what I recommend for everybody out there. But hey, we appreciate you so much. Make sure to give Brandon a follow at BGC0614, and I'm at the Ben Eby. So thank you guys so much for rocking with us. This was a live Elite Seekers show, which is crazy. We're talking about every Friday the young prospects, but hey, training camp, a lot going on. So we want to hit you up. Just have some chats, have some fun. So thank you guys so much. Really, really appreciate you rocking with us. That's all we got tonight. Hey, Elite Seekers out.